Hello, everyone. Hello, speaking. Hello, audience. Thank you so much for joining us today for this event. We are here today to dive into the buyer enablement movement and the role of sales deal room with some of the brightest minds in the business. Feel free, audience, to go into the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to see the global footprint of our community. And we also have a poll today. So I just opened a poll. You're going to see on the right hand side, there is like a tab for you to answer the question. And it's just about the size of your organization. We've got a fantastic lineup today discussing buyer enablement. These are the kind of insights you won't find just anywhere, only here at Modern Sales Pros. My name is Eduardo. I am a marketing manager here at Modern Sales Pros. And for those of you not familiar with MSP, we are the world's largest and finest community for more than 35,000 members in sales management, leadership, operations, and enablement. We are all about taking the road less travel and bringing you along for the journey with us. Our mission is to help you tackle tough questions and discover opportunities you might not even know exist. And we do this through vibrant live sessions like this one you're about to experience. We have an engaging online forum. We have summits every year, every quarter specifically, and we are expanding an array of in-person events nationwide. Next week, we are going to attend Dreamforce. I'm going to show you a slide pretty soon. So it's right here. Next week, we have a Dreamforce happy hour, and you're all invited to come. Doc is sponsoring this happy hour, so if you like what Alex and Joey are saying here today, you're going to meet them in person next week. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you, audience, to sign up for this happy hour in a few seconds. But let's focus on this event right now. So I have a few housekeeping notes. First of all, this event is being recorded, and you, audience, will receive the link for the recording right after later today on your email. I'm going to send an email from myself, so keep an eye out from an email. And also, we have the Q&A panel on your right-hand side. So if you have any questions for Alex, Joey, or Todd, just ask them, and we'll have time to answer all your questions later on. And finally, there's a request a demo with our sponsor button at the top of this page. And our sponsor today is Doc. We have Alex and Joey here today to tell us a little bit about what Doc is all about. So if you like what they're saying, just hit the button and they will get in touch with you later today for you to change your game with Doc. All right, so let's change the focus to the stars of the show. I'm going to pass the mic to Alex. It's going to be our moderator today. So, Alex, you can take it from here, introduce yourself, and start the conversation.
Thanks, Eduardo. What's up, everybody? I'm Alex. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Doc. Super excited to be here with the Modern Sales Pros community. I love this community. I met Pete years ago when I was like the VP of marketing at Lattice, and always really respected, what he's built with this community. We had a really fun time meeting everybody on the boat event earlier this summer, and excited to meet everybody next week at the Dreamforce happy hour. But yeah, super excited today to talk to you about buyer enablement and what I see as sort of a big shift that's happening in the industry today. I got a few slides I'm going to run through, but I promise I'm not going to bore you with slides. Going to hit through them pretty quickly. Just wanted to kind of like ground the conversation with what we're talking about, and then we're going to have a fun chat. I wanted Joey and Todd to be here because they both have somewhat similar experience of being the first AEs at really fast growing companies. Todd was at Heap, and Joey was at Modern Health. And then now Todd is the CEO of an awesome company called Champify. He's a Doc customer, and Joey's our head of sales at Doc. So they are much better at sales than me. So I wanted to bring them in here and talk about, how we think about the modern buyer. So let's get into it. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's make sure I know how to do this. Okay. Sweet. You should be able to see my screen. Beautiful. I'm just going to reposition some stuff. Okay. Cool. All right. So today we're going to talk mostly about this concept of what I see as like the buyer enablement revolution. And there's this big shift that's happening in the industry from what I believe from sales enablement to buyer enablement. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about because I'm building a solution for buyer enablement, what we think of as this exploding category called sales deal rooms. A little bit about me and maybe why you should listen to what I have to say is my main experience was at Lattice. I was at this company called Lattice. I joined there as the third employee, first marketing hire. And at that time at Lattice, we went through tremendous growth. We went from $0 in revenue. I still remember getting our first check in the mail to over $50 million in revenue. And as my position at VP of marketing, I spent a lot of time thinking about how do we enable the sales team? How do we help our sales team better connect with buyers? And that experience actually led me to start Doc, because I was really frustrated with the tools that were available to me. You had these landing page tools or big sales enablement tools, but I never found there was something that really helped connect the seller to the buyer. And so that's why I ultimately quit a very good high-paying job to start Doc. And today Doc has like over 200, actually over 250 customers. This is a little outdated. And our primary use case, that's relevant for this audience is sales deal rooms, but we also help with things like customer onboarding, content management, so on and so forth. Yeah, and I live in San Francisco, and if you hear the dog is in the office today because I'm a new dad. I got kicked out of the house, so I'm in the office. So hopefully Bodie is well behaved, but he might make a star appearance. Alrighty, let's get into the meat. All right, we're going to talk about buyer enablement and then get into a panel with Todd and Joey. So I would argue that sales enablement has really historically been focused internally, right? It is all about the seller. Everything we hear about is about the seller, seller, seller. It's about how do we ramp sales hires as fast as we can? How do we support them for ongoing trainings, whether you're rolling out new products or a new pitch? It's all very seller focused. That's kind of like the language and the way we approach things within organizations. All the tools that we have are about finding content, informations. It's all about, hey, sellers, make your CRM super clean and up to date so that that eventually helps the buyers. But I found that this is, I don't know, an interesting dynamic, and I think this was what how the industry has approached like sales training, coaching, and management for the last 10, 20 years. And the existing tech solutions that are available out there all focus on that seller experience. And because we were so internally focused, the thesis was if we focus internally, it's going to have these benefits externally. All the software and the different things that are available to most go-to-market teams are really internal tools, right? It's about finding sales content, training the different sellers. How can we better store the data? The whole industry really focused on sales enablement and how do you sort of focus internally. But as we all know, and I won't beat this point to death, but the selling environment has really changed, right? We have distributed teams all over the world, which makes it way harder to train and ramp sales reps, especially younger sales reps. It's really hard to get visibility into whether people are working their pipeline properly or doing enough outbound. We also are being forced to do more with less these days. It's no longer the ZERP era sales team where we can just grow. We need to have higher quotas and smaller teams to kind of reach those same big goals. And the selling process is way harder. There's increased budget scrutiny. CFOs need to be in every deal. Every deal requires a team, to kind of make that purchasing decision. Me and Joey joke with the sales process at Doc. It's like a 50K deal is the same as like a 6K deal because the amount of people that want to get involved. And so the selling environment has dramatically changed. And not only has the selling environment changed, or I guess all of those selling environment changes have led to buyer journeys being more and more complicated and taking way longer. And so I'm sure you've all seen this graphic before from Gartner, and it's a great one to kind of go over the full buyer journey. But there's so many different steps in the process that buyers are going through to kind of get that purchase decision done, and everything seems to require a buying committee approval, and you really got to justify the business case. And ultimately, what buyers want has also evolved. And so this is a great list of stats from our friends over at G2. But what buyers care about is the overall sales experience. How does the seller make them feel? How does the buying process make them feel? They want content that actually helps support their research goals. They want the seller to really listen to them and understand that their needs and how you're going to help solve their problems. They don't want just a generic pitch. They want it to be personalized to them, and they want it to be consistent, right? They don't want to be looking at different places to find information. They want to just go to one place to find what they're looking for, and then ultimately that sort of package makes it easier for the seller to go convince those buying teams that we talked about. And so I would argue, right, it's a time for this mindset shift from a world of sales enablement to buyer enablement, right? How do we think about how we can better support buyers in the sales process and help the sellers support those buyers throughout that journey? And so what is buyer enablement? Buyer enablement is creating the content, tools, and process and that make it easy for your buyers to buy. How do you just actually make it super simple for your buyers to buy? And how do you sort of match what they want in the sales process to what they're looking for? And so what does this mean exactly? It's three simple things, right? It is, how can you help the buyer reach their goals? They're not just buying software for the sake of it, right? You need to be able to map the buyer's problems and goals to your solution. You need to create business cases alongside champions. You need to actually authentically help the buyer make the right decision for their business. If it makes sense, you should probably recommend a competitor to them, right? You need to actually make sure you're going to help them reach their goals, because we're all playing the long game, especially in SaaS. It's about building authentic relationships with people. The other piece of the puzzle is really supporting your buyer's research in the process. I think there's some stat where it's like in the entirety of the buyer's sales process, you maybe have like 5% of that to really influence and talk to the buyer. And so the rest of the 95% of the time, the buyer is researching on their own, talking to people. And so you need to make it really easy for you to support the research and to also like present your best case and foot forward. I also would argue you need to buyers want to try before they buy in some way, right? PLG companies can do this way easier, but even enterprise companies can come up with things like, demo sandboxes, better demo recordings, give them like proof of concepts, right? Buyers aren't going to want the like, hey, I've never even touched this product before. You're going to have to give them some way to get a sense of what they're actually buying. And so I think, and why we're building Doc and why we found success so far with Doc, is that deal rooms are the number one way to enable buyers, right? And it's a win for both the buying side, and it also makes the seller's life and way easier, and also leads to kind of higher close rates. And there's a reason why deal rooms, and I know this is not the best graphic, but you can see digital sales rooms creeping at the top of Gartner's hype cycle, right? This is why digital sales rooms are all over LinkedIn, all over Gartner. It is becoming one of the most popular trends in SaaS today. And it's because of the shift from sales enablement to buyer enablement. It's because what's in a deal room really maps to what a buyer wants. And so I would argue everything a buyer wants really aligns with deal rooms, right? If you think back to that G2 slide, like buyers want this premium and consistent experience. They want it personalized. They want it to include a business case, consistent interactions, easy link to share with stakeholders, and everything they want, right? I'm literally just telling you the benefits of a deal room. And so it's this like perfect match between what the buyers want and this like new piece of technology that's getting developed. And you can see in this little GIF here is an example of a doc deal room that we're walking through. Oops. All right. And then also on the seller side, they love deal rooms as well, partly because the better buyer experience, and if you match what you want to the buyer experience, is going to lead to higher close rates. Like one of our customers increased their close rates by 31% with Doc, but you also get tons of analytics by using a deal room. And so by using a deal room, you're able to better craft your follow-up. You're able to tell whether people are ghosting you or not. You're also able to really support champions throughout that buying process, whether it's co-creating business cases, answering questions with product information, different things like that. And it's all in one place, which makes the buyer's life that much easier. And then the last thing I think sellers really love with deal rooms is it really helps you shorten the sales follow-up time. Everything's in a pre-baked template. You duplicate it, you send it over, and there's like some light personalization, but it really speeds up your sales follow-up time. And so we really see deal rooms as this win-win, right, for buyers and sellers. And that's why we kind of want to talk about it today with Todd and Joey. I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but I picked both these because I think they had really similar experience leading fast-growing SaaS companies. Todd at Heap and Joey at Modern Health, and they're both doing awesome things today. Champify is an amazing product, which helps you kind of more on the outbound side, get in touch with your champions. And Joey has been our head of sales at Doc now for, I guess, almost a year, and I've learned so much about sales from him. So super excited to have you both for a panel now, and I'm gonna be the one asking questions now. I'm gonna stop sharing, and maybe let's open it up. All right, you both have been sellers and leading teams for over a decade now. Todd, maybe let's start with you. Like, what's different about what modern buyers expect today than in the past?
Yeah, there's a lot there. As you were going through that, Alex, I couldn't help but think, like, you used the word buyer enablement. I think a lot of it is champion enablement as a subset of buyer enablement too. I think that'll come up a lot today. But what I think that's changed, right? And like you said, I was rep number one at a company. It's now been 7, 8 years ago, and there's always a new leader and new maturation of a sales process. But what I think is like the most tangible thing that sellers feel in deals that's really different is a couple things. The first thing is buyers are more educated. Like they are aware of adjacent or competing solutions. I think with that, they're also more confused because like every category just has so many more vendors today. I think the buying committees have grown. And in general, I believe the selection process has gotten more democratic, meaning there's more people involved. I think many more buyers have been burnt, and a lot of them feel that, right? Like many, many times towards the end of a sales cycle, we're working with a champion, and then a CFO or a CRO wants to chat last minute. He's like, hey, we just got burnt multiple times. And I think that's pretty common now. And whether they express that or not, I think that's happened with a lot of previous buying cycles. And then you alluded to this as well, which I think is important. I think the differentiators outside of purely product matter more, right? So it used to be like, hey, this product does X and this one does Y. And now people take into account and weight it very heavily, whether it's explicit or not. What is this buying process? Did I learn from this seller? Do I assume in my combos with Joey, he's really smart, so therefore I think this post-sales person is going to be smart? And I think it's just the broader process, not just the pure product.
Joey, what would you add to that?
I would agree. I mean, I think there's a few things. So just for everybody on the call, I spent the last decade selling to HR, which is like a very specific buyer that, in my own opinion, weights very heavily the feel of the process of being sold to. So maybe a little bit of an early adopter in terms of like the buyer enablement journey. But I would just plus 1,000 to what Todd said. I think like when we show up today to our prospects that hopefully become our clients, there's this like spidey sense or gut feeling of, am I going to be set up for success when I work with this team, this company, this product in a post-sales environment? It comes up as early as our first call in terms of the way that we show up and how we kind of like, put our arms around the prospect or champion because they're also vetting us. Like it's like dating in a sense, right? Where you're saying, hey, do I want to spend the next 30, 60, 90, a year and a half, depending on your segmentation? And how can I make sure that this person makes me feel supported? But even more important than that, like, do they make me look good internally? Because I'm going beyond the own scope of my role to be a champion for something that could make or break my career. And like, that's not to be taken lightly either. I think as we kind of transition the conversation to deal rooms today, something that's really important, just as a call out, and I'm sure that Todd will do a great job of this too, because he sells a tool that has an impact on an actual sales process, is when we actually show up as a rep, as a manager, as a leader, how are we being an extension of that brand? And a deal room is a great way to do that. And I think there's also like a lot of differentiation in there between products, which we won't get into today. But those are probably the two things that I would add is like, how does your process mirror the process that they want to buy or how they've bought products in the past? And I'll take a pause.
Yeah, and I think like your sales reps are just a reflection of your brand ultimately. And it was something like Deanie, who was the CRO at Lattice, who I worked really closely with, like we really cared about. It was not just what we were selling, it was how we sold, how we showed up to a call. Are you professional? Are you well researched? How do you talk about your competitors? It's really easy to get on a call and be like, and bash your competitors, but there's a way to do it in a way where, I thought was the way she phrased it, like, we're not going to give our competitors any room in our show, right? Or something like that. And like, it's really, there's a way you can sell in an authentic way that makes you come across like, and not just come across like you are good people who actually really care. And I think we forget, especially as we're selling software, people aren't just buying the software. It's SaaS is software as a service, right? There's a people element behind it. And you're also investing in, especially as a startup, you're investing in the group of people behind it, the people who are building the product, the people who are going to service you. And it always makes me so happy when I get like a ping on LinkedIn where it's like, we love what you're building at Doc, but we really actually love Joey and team more. And like, that's kind of like what pushed us over the deal. And that always makes me, really, really happy. And I think it's just a good reflection of your brand out there in the world.
Yeah. I would agree. One point to add on to that, and I know we're going to get into a bunch of questions, but maybe speaking to your original question, especially the one that you asked to Todd and I about like starting at small companies and then being able to scale that effectively. That's not something to take lightly. And there's a lot of, sales enablement tools that can definitely help aid in that process. But I think the one thing where companies get really tripped up on is they have these early reps that are really excited about the product. They're giving feedback on what's happening on deals where they're getting stuck, objections, how they're showing up to the customer. And they love those reps. Like those reps get them to, their first 20 million, they get them their Series B. But then the question is like, how do we take and scale? We used to call them the Bens at Modern Health. They were our 2 top reps. How do we scale their process effectively? Because we want all of, the now 20 AEs that we have to show up to the customer in the same way. And that's probably like a good positioning for today's conversation is how do you make sure that if Joey's showing up in a certain way and you're getting really nice feedback on LinkedIn post-sale, that the rest of the team is also doing that? And how do you actually scale that? Because that's kind of like the gray area that I think a lot of companies run into.
I'm curious in today's selling environment, like what's unique about today's sales process to win a deal today? Like what's something that you have to do today that you could kind of get away with maybe in the ZERP era, but like today has become a requirement? What's your take on that, Todd?
Yeah, I have 3 things. We have the concept internally. We say, hey, having a pain, right? Something that they're trying to solve for is great, but that's not enough, right? We think about it as like pain and train. And when we say train, it's like, hey, there's momentum around solving this, right? And you think about that, that's multiple people thinking about it. There's a risk of doing nothing. They're going to approach it in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's the first part, which is like true pain, measurable, and some momentum around trying to fix it. Secondly, is just like a true business case, right? So not fluffy, not based on time savings, not overinflated. I think buyers have been, to get back to what's changed, they're a lot more educated on this and have been overpromised. So the more you're using any business case on real data you have with existing customers, real data from a POC, real data from actual benchmarks, that matters. I think the last one that I feel is a lot different today than early days at Heap, 7-8 years ago, is needing to understand some of the indirect competition as well, right? Like Joey, you and your team, yeah, you're competing with other head-to-head competitors, but you're also competing for a whole suite of other solutions that you're competing for budget for, right? And I think that's what the best reps are great at today. And they're really getting on the same side of the table with their buyers and understanding like, let's think through this. Like there's different avenues to approach this problem. What's going to have the biggest impact? What's going to have the biggest risk to success? So the indirect part, I think, has made this a lot hairy to scale the Benzes, Joe. Like that's the challenging thing.
Yeah, I would add on to that too, because I agree with all of that. I think like kind of going back to the Gartner, I think it was the G2 stats that you pulled up, like we need more time to sell to you, but we have less time to do it, which is a really interesting concept. Like even in our SMB deals at Doc, there's 3, 4, 5 stakeholders where 2 years ago, that might be way more transactional and someone comes in and they're just like ready to move because that buying committee has changed. So kind of like adding on to like the train comment and like the momentum piece. I think what the best reps are doing today is they're not asking for time. They're just taking it in a way where they're being highly prescriptive about what's needed to actually sell to them effectively. So to give an example of that, it's like, hey, Alex, like I loved our conversation today. In terms of next steps, I know that we're going to be hopping on a demo. In the meantime, what I'll do is actually put this together. I'll get that business case, first draft. And then what I would love to do before that is actually just hop on a quick prep call and have you rip it apart. Like, how does this feel? I want to make sure it's coming from your language. I know we're introducing you to a lot of new people on your team, or we're getting introduced, better put. Let's make sure that like we're on the same page there. And then I'd love for you to open it up on that call. And actually having all of those little moments in between the bigger conversations where often and early you're asking for their time, but in a way that makes them feel supported. So even if you're not getting to the 12, 13 stakeholders that might be in that opportunity, you have someone that you can kind of like side gossip with and figure out the org and learn how to play chess. And that can help you refine that business case. So that way, by the time you get to the end of the sales cycle, you have a really clear picture of all of the roadblocks that might stand in your way, especially indirect competition, which is a really good one that Todd mentioned too. But I'll take a pause.
And I think that's honestly one of the biggest things I've learned from watching you, Joey, is like this concept of the calls between the calls and buddying up to your champions and stuff. It's like, I was always like when I was doing the founder-led sales thing, it's like, all right, I'm gonna do my intro call, then demo call. I'll talk to you then and whatever. And it's like, no, it's actually the work between the calls and then even the like texting and the emailing and the slacking and the whatever between even the calls between the calls, right? And that's how you kind of keep getting all of that information that you can then use in your business case or just to inform the process or to actually get a sense of whether this is a deal that's worth your time. And I think let's spend a little more time on business cases, because I think one of the great use cases of a deal room is to it's a place to co-build a business case with your champions. It's an easy way for champions to then go share it to the CFO or their boss or whoever needs it. Todd, I'm curious, like, how do you think, like, what goes into creating a really good business case? Like, is there a structure or format that you use? Like, how do you think about like what a rock star business case looks like?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer. I want to address one thing Joey said because I think it's extremely important. Like what he said there was, hey, I'm gonna figure out steps in between our normal sales process. To me, that's become the new hallway conversation, right? You used to go on site and you're like, yeah, you do the dog and pony show, but what's really matters is like that 8 minutes in the parking lot, the hallway, and that's become that, and the best sellers are doing it. And then I think, secondly, Joey, and you say like, hey, dig into this, rip this apart. I think more junior sellers are like, all right, I did the ROI case, I showed them, like, we're good. And it's like, if they're quiet or not calling bullshit or this number is off a little bit, that's bad, right? And I think the best sellers welcome that. So I just think they're two subtle points that I think really good reps do and others struggle with. In terms of what goes into a good business case, here's how we think about it. There's a handful. You guys have your own metrics, velocity, win rate, things like that. For us, like you said, Alex, it's more top of funnel. A lot of what really centered on could be a handful of different things. Hey, we're trying to get the AEs to prospect, right? So like outbound pipeline production on an AE basis could be about efficiency per SDR. For us, we try to latch on to like, what is that one thing that really matters? And we have like 4 different flavors of that. And then we put together a business case, like you said, Joey, where we're saying, hey, we have a data test, which is basically our POC. So we're using their real data combined with what we have across 70 customers now. And then laser focused on that one metric that matters, right? And I think the thing we've gotten better at or have matured on is just trying to be super realistic in these conversations. And sometimes that's us being realistic to where like, you know what, this doesn't move the needle enough. And it's like, okay, great, we can part ways here, right? But we're not going to sit here and overpromise something. So I think to summarize, it's pre-built together, laser focused on 1 or 2 key metrics that matter and not trying to overcomplicate this and use real data.
Just to add on to that too, I think like pre-built together is so important. And then like kind of calling back to what you called back to me on, it's like, are you continuing to iterate and build it over time? I love the hallway conversation piece. I'm definitely taking it with me. I've never really thought about it in that way, but it is the most important. Like I'll give you an example. So we're working a few big deals in our pipeline right now. We have extremely strong champions. We've met with CEO, we've met with CRO. And then, that goes back to their desk at the end and they're like, hey, work with these 2 people. And, they're going to bring it to me next Friday. And then we're going to go through it in an executive summary format. Like how many times are you actually meeting with that person? Like, how do you feel about this? What do you think? What real examples can we bring into this that this pain point has incurred in the organization in the past? And I think to your point with younger reps, it's a lot of, okay, cool. I have my 3 challenges and I have my focus areas. And it's like, this is all crap. Like there's nothing in here that's actually telling me, okay, cool. They got a deal to 70% before and they had 2 champions and then they said that they were bringing it forward, but I had no visibility into the deal. And then the deal took 2.5 more months longer to close and then it went to close lost. Like those real examples, I think are things reps shy away from. And the big piece of it is kind of just taking it to a human level. Like, hey, what's the one thing that keeps you up at night if you're looking at these challenges? Or, hey, I know that you mentioned that example of when you were working with Cisco in the past. Like, can you walk me through that? And then when we talk about a business case, let's not try to solve for the world. Let's just speak to that one place when you come on board as a customer that we can make the most impact immediately. And that's really hard for reps because there's a lot of feature selling, there's different parts of the tooling, and it helps you really just like kind of refine what that looks like. So I hope that's helpful, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like buyers today expect proof of concepts more just because they've been burned in the past, faced higher CFO scrutiny. Like it's even more than just like Doc has a free account. You can just sign up and start using it. But then people even want just like the full featured, and they want to run a real process around that. And so Todd, maybe we start with you. I'm curious, like, what does it take to run a good POC? Because I know you run these at a doc with the data test. Like, how do you think about kind of structuring that so it's not, I don't know, this never-ending process? Like, yeah, what
For
goes
sure.
into a good POC?
I think the first thing is you have to remember we have our best rep at Champify. He'll go, yeah, of course someone says they want to do a data test. It's free and they have nothing to lose. Like that means absolutely nothing. So I think the first thing is like, okay, what happens before that, and being as strict and black and white on, are we going to do this? Is there EB involvement? Have we built out a V1 of that business case that knows they're a big enough impact? We know somewhat of the indirect competition, direct competition. So I think the first thing is like not getting too early, not going there too early is like the biggest mistake I tend to see. I think the second thing, Alex, to answer your question directly, is what exactly are they trying to test, right? And that matters a lot. Like for us, a data test, if you're trying to validate some data quality, that's awesome. What type of numbers do you expect to see? Here's what we'd imagine. If it's in this range, is that good enough, right? Like if it's going into a POC, I want to see if people adopt it. That's not what a POC is built for. If it's, hey, I want to see what the result is going to be for a specific campaign, that's also not what the POC is for, right? So I think, yes, there is some, I agree with you that more people want some type of proof. I think people need to think very critically about what exactly that is. And the more black and white you can make the requirements of did it work or not, the better.
And I think one thing we struggle with their own POCs, and then I'm going to pass it to you, Joey, is like, and I'm sure you deal with this too, Todd. It's like just by selling to salespeople, you sell a product to them, and they're like, "Did you make me more money? Are you going to win deals? Are you going to do all these things?" Like they just want that immediate gratification of, "Are you going to win a deal for me?" And it's like, we could, but like, you might have a 6-month sales process, and our POC is 2 weeks, or we're just a tool and you might be a bad rep. Like, like there's so many variables there. And so it's tricky, and you to figure out, okay, what is the goal for a POC? And I think that's something we have really struggled with and gone back and forth with in our own POC process, of the right way to kind of anchor those goals and like what's fair. Cause ultimately, yeah, we want to help you win more deals, but it's like, yeah, if you have a 6-month sales process, you can't do a 6-month POC with us, like that's too tricky.
I think it's going to what Joey said too around like level setting. Like a big part of that has to be like, hey, you told us you have a 6 to 9 month deal cycle. What are leading indicators that is going to give you enough, indication that that is the right bet? But we have to be very realistic on what this is. I think both of us, the three of us, have a challenge where like you have to know what to do with the products and you have to be able to execute. And we've gotten a lot better at saying this is not magic. Right? If you have really good execution with our product, good things will happen, as customers A, B, and C have done. But like you could turn this on tomorrow and have terrible adoption and execution, and this is a bad investment. You shouldn't do it. Right? And I think that type of level setting has been helpful as well.
I would agree. I also think like people want to be told the ugly truth. Like no one wants to hear, yeah, you're going to close 200 more deals and it's going to be great and all the things. Like leading with confidence in the way that we've seen it work for customers is the most important piece, especially echoing back to what Todd had mentioned earlier about buyers being burned in the past. Like I can't tell you how often now we're talking about what our experience looks like when you come on board with us, and giving them a detailed approach of how we're going to hold their hand, but also hold them accountable to being a good customer for us, because they want to know what the future looks like. And that also goes to POC. I think like early in our process, and you would probably agree with this, Alex, at Doc, we were so excited to give people trials, but then there was no accountability to what a good trial looked like. And as we moved into Q1 and Q2, that really changed. I think there's a few things there. The first on our part, which is why we've been converting a few more, is you have to have executive alignment. Like, hey, if we're going to be spending a month with you and doing trainings for everybody in the room, we also set up a workspace that's a full extension of what your deal room will look like. And then from there too, it's like we also need engagement. Going back to the point about, hey, we don't know if you have good reps on your team. Like, I don't know the talent that you hired. So we also need at bats. So coming in with like almost a strict rule book that can obviously be flexible and you can work on together of, this is what we've seen be successful in this setting, build on it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Let's make sure that we agree on it. But we're also going to do a full kickoff call with you. We're going to make sure that you're fully into the space and you understand how it's going to work for your reps. We're going to do a training call to make sure everybody knows how to send and share. And then we will be doing a weekly check-in for the next 3 weeks. And on every single one of those calls, I'm going to be asking if you're ready to move forward and how that feels. And that transparency is really helpful. We're also talking to sales leaders. So having that just like no BS approach to it, I think has done really well for us. And if you can't get there, like maybe that's not the right fit for that and they should go to free world for a little bit. Whereas younger reps will probably want to hold on to that and say, no, they're going to close and all these things. And it's like, well, all of your buying signals are pretty soft. Maybe you have one person that loves it, but they can't get the attention of their team. And if you're going to spend a month doing this, we should make sure that we can knock it out of the park. And everybody in the room, for the most part, is on the same page of what success will look like moving forward.
And I think one of the great things about deal rooms in particular is when me and Joey were kind of figuring out this POC process, like Doc's own deal room, we use Doc a lot at Doc, became this forum where we could have a conversation about what is our process for a POC? What are the 3 or 4 steps we critically need people to do in the process, like set up Salesforce or whatever? Where's the documentation go? It becomes this place to both align on who's going to be involved, where are the goals, but also like the technical setup of like, what are the things you need to do to kind of set it out for success? And, that was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, we're actually building something really, really useful here because it really helped us, refine our own process. And it gets very meta at Doc doing this, but that was one thing. And we actually have it as like a hidden page in our deal room because, we try and avoid doing a POC transparently, right? Like we want you just to buy off a demo call or buy off our free account. But if you, sort of put us in a position and you're a big enough company, we will do it for you. And so it's a really easy way where we can kind of flex on, flex off our POC process depending on who we're talking to. And then even within the POC, we have subsets, right? We have some of our customers use us for HubSpot versus Salesforce or use Gong or something else. And so there's different setup steps depending on kind of what the customer needs. And we're able to really personalize the POC to them using our own software, which has been a fun tool.
The only thing I would add on to that too is like for anybody that's listening, one learning, and I would call it a hesitation. Like I came from a world where I was selling to HR. There was a very structured process. We couldn't let people touch our tool because it was HIPAA non-compliant. When I came into Doc, I was very much like POC world. I hate it. I don't want to do it. Let's push as hard as we can. And I think the unlock was if you have a tool that people can touch and they can use and they can feel and you're confident in it, the earlier that you can get them into it and prescriptively guide them through how to use it effectively, especially in a POC environment, it does kind of force them from just a fatigue perspective. They can't trial 3 to 4 tools effectively to move away from that. And then there's this period, even if you're in like a competitive differentiation type of situation, where they're just kind of like build their walls down or take them down and say, well, our team's already using this and we really like it, so let's move forward. And it takes a lot of refinement in that process and getting confident with it. But I would say that's probably one of our biggest unlocks and why we've done really well this quarter. So just to call that out.
I think leaders, Joey, to your point, you can't be religious with the I love POCs, I hate them. It really depends on the product. Like you guys are very unique in the sense that you could get on with, maybe you have one sales leader in a company that has 10 of them that wants to start doing this, and you meet in the morning and you have a perfectly spun up Doc workspace for a call in the afternoon. Like that's super powerful. But I think there's a lot of companies that don't have that immediate kind of tangible feel of the benefit of the solution. And okay, you have to be realistic about that when you think about POCs.
Exactly.
I'd love to shift gears a little bit into like a rapid fire round just about deal rooms. We got like maybe 10 minutes or so left, and maybe starting with you, Todd, like you're one of our OG customers at Champify. Like what got you interested in using a deal room? Like how did that help you with founder-led sales? And maybe can you just talk about how Champify has used Doc to kind of help scale its sales process?
Here's how I think about it. Kind of like Joey or Deanie said, right? Like how you show up, I think is really important. So just the minute you're on the first call and bringing this up or on a second call and this is what you share, it's like, oh, okay, these people are buttoned up. That's, I'm assuming that's going to be an extension what I'm going to receive post sale. So like showing you're organized, showing you're really professional. I think the second thing is we, especially in the beginning, would get really, people would kind of put us in a box. Hey, you do this one little thing. And I think what we've been able to do is, yeah, we may have a conversation about that thing. It's super valuable, but in Doc, you can start to expose other use cases And then we'd find like, oh, people are looking at this, they're sharing that, we're widening the scope of this. I think you just avoid meetings too. A big part of founder-led sales is like you only have so much time. So how can I proactively get in front of that, whether it's security questions or case studies or whatever that may be. But I think the biggest thing, Alex, and you know this because in the beginning you're just talking to a lot of people trying to figure out the exact fit. The best indicator of forecasting and interest is just engagement. Like we can make all this complicated stuff, but like, do we have meetings on the books? Are they engaging with us? And to me, it's just another form of engagement. And then the last thing, which has been like a subtle benefit of Doc that I did not think about at all when we started using. Look, if you're in an early stage category, the biggest thing you're losing to is do nothing. And over time, a big chunk of your deals are going to come back. This was my experience at Heap. Many of the best deals we lost 12, 24 months earlier. So this kind of leaves some breadcrumbs. All the time now, and multiple times a month, we see a good account re-engaging with an old doc, right? And that's awesome because now it's like almost some subtle, quiet nurture that we're not doing anything for. So I think that's a subtle benefit as well.
Yeah, I mean, the analytics are like the most powerful thing, and definitely the thing that the sales reps in particular just absolutely love. And it's funny, like the biggest objection about Doc is will my buyer ever look at the link? And honestly, it's like if they don't look at the link, they're not going to buy your product. It's like kind of that simple. And so it's like it's a great way to get a sense of how engaged somebody is in the sales process, whether they're just wasting your time, whether they're ghosting you or not. And just like that simple thing, all it is literally a link. Everyone on the internet goes and clicks links all day long. If they're not willing to do that, they're probably not going to buy your product. And like that analytics really can help you structure your follow-up, because now if they don't click on the link, you're able to say, hey, I noticed you didn't check it out, or you probably need to re-engage that prospect a little bit more. Or if they're super engaged, that, hey, I got a hot deal and this is probably going to close. Joey, maybe a different topic related to deal rooms. Like, I'm curious how you think about introducing deal rooms to buyers. Like, where in the sales process do you introduce a deal room? How do you sort of keep them re-engaged throughout the deal cycle? Yeah, like how do you sort of think about that?
Cool. I'll speak to it from two perspectives. So the first is from the IC's perspective. So for everybody on this call that's a sales leader, we don't want people doing more work. We want to keep it really simple. So in Doc world, after you get off of a disco call, or even before, better yet, you spin up a workspace. It has all basic information there, who I am, what our evaluation is going to look like, prescriptive next steps. It has, whatever collateral you're typically going to send after that first disco conversation. And then whatever else you want to share, case studies, overviews. If they're already asking about security, great, put that in there, all of the things. And then in terms of just like the way that you actually drive the engagement on it, I would just say bring it up early and often. So what our best reps do over at Doc is they just bring it up at the end of the disco call. Hey, Cindy, it was so great to connect today. I'm so glad we have alignment. Obviously, you're going to want to summarize everything that happened on that conversation, make sure the pain is real, all of the things that we've been talking about today. And then from there, I want to make this really easy for you. So going back to buyer enablement, as we move forward in the process together, we're just going to have this one space that has everything that you need as you have internal conversations, especially as we think about the demo and that prep call next. I'm going to share it right after we get off the call. Actually, just put it in the Zoom link too for you. And then from there, as this evaluation becomes more real and more complex, and there's other people that have questions, we'll signpost people back to that. That's number one. And then the second piece, from an ongoing perspective, why deal rooms are great is because as you have more personas that come into the conversation, the security team, the legal team, the marketing team, a second line sales leader that you're selling to, whoever it is, you can then take that workspace and whatever is relevant to them, just tag them in that one section. We've gotten away from really long emails after follow-ups. Good example, we just had a call yesterday. The chief marketing officer couldn't join. We just tagged her in the workspace in the recorded demo and then the relevant information. And then for my rep, what's great is then he can validate, hey, did Abby actually go in here and take a look at it? Or coming into that next call, to Todd's point about engagement, am I going to have to do some more education and take a step back to make sure that this person is up to speed? So those are two things. And then the final thing that I'll mention, which is probably the most important, is just manager-led visibility. I spend way less time in my CRM these days and just way more time in Doc. So in my one-on-ones, it's like, hey, you said that you're forecasting this deal. Let's pull up the workspace and take a look at it. If, to your point, no one has looked at the link, that's probably a much different conversation. Hey, why do you have this in commit? But it is really, really important in terms of just like first and second line visibility. And I would say probably 75 to 80% of the time after we get off of a disco, we're finding that our champions are clicking in right away. And then from there, we at least have 1 to 2 more people that are coming into the space before the next call, where we can have a nice education point of, hey, who is this person? Why do they matter? What part of the organization are they in? And then on our prep call internally, we have a nice like, hey, Todd's going to be in this. What are some type of questions that we want to pitch back to Todd to get him engaged from the start? So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. So we're sitting here in September. It's starting to be very close to kind of like the big end of year push. I'm sure we're all sort of feeling the pressure to, okay, meet our big lofty goals for the year, and those big deals we've been working all year we want to close. I'm curious, maybe starting with you, Todd, like what's really top of mind for you, putting your sales leader hat on sort of as you head into the end of year? Are you just trying to scale up your AI SDR team? Are you doing other things? Like what's really top of mind for you?
Definitely not AI SDR team, but the things I'm thinking about are this. Like if you've been doing this long enough, you know, everything is like not perfect at any given time, right? And it's really just prioritizing what are the 1 or 2 things in the customer acquisition process you want to try to improve. So for us, like we look at this kind of in 2 camps. On the pipeline generation side, you know, we did like 40% more pipeline than last quarter, and we're hoping to have a similar jump. And that's like getting really focused on named accounts, only working with people that we know are great fits, and getting bigger and bigger in terms of company size. So like that's the focus on the pipeline side. In terms of the deal side, we're trying to improve our deal velocity. Like I think there's sometimes for how big our deal is and how long it takes is a bit out of whack. And we've identified 2 parts of that overall that we think we can really accelerate. Now we have kind of sub projects working toward that. I want to see velocity improve while the pipeline's going up, and hopefully win rate stays where it is. And I'll be really happy going into next year.
What about you, Joey?
I mean, it's not revolutionary, but there's 2 things. I think going into Q4, reps have a tendency to just focus on what they have and like hold it really closely in their hands and then try to close it all out. And then they break some eggs and then it all falls apart. So to Todd's point, pipeline creation is really, really top of mind for us right now. We just hired a new rep, super exciting. How can we make sure that we just set really clear, accountable goals week over week and refining our process of the target accounts that we want to close out? I like to distill a little bit of healthy fear. I'm 10 plus years into my sales career, that by the time you get past Halloween, you essentially have everything that you're going to close in your pipeline, which is not true. You'll get some bluebirds, you'll get some ones that come into your pipeline later. But how are you making sure that you're really spending time acquiring new leads in your pipeline? So that way you're set up for success and you have like a really beautiful runway to close out the year strong. I've been in that situation before where that hasn't happened as a rep. So have some scar tissue there. And then the second piece of it as well, I think on the conversion side is, are we doing everything we can with our top deals to make sure that we are the vendor of choice? And that kind of goes back to our early conversation. Every single one of our opportunities is highly competitive. We either lose to status quo, doing nothing, or we have really, really high early adopters that want to come in and buy deal rooms. How are we making sure that we're not single threaded? And then more than that, have they touched our tool? Are they using it already? Are they engaging with it? How are they engaging with it? Do they feel like we're a better fit? Going back to all that like gutsy, feely, emotional stuff when it comes to actually having them share a space with their team, which is also kind of tying it back to why you just need to hire like really high EQ people that can manage up well to their pipeline. So those are 2 things that are top of mind for me.
Well, thank you so much for spending your morning with me. It was a really fun conversation. Everyone who's still made it this far, go connect with Joey and Todd on LinkedIn. They're both very active over there. And definitely go check out Champify, champify.io, doc.us if you want to go check out deal rooms. And thanks for spending your morning with us. It was a fun conversation.
It was really
Thanks,
fun.
Alex.
I put the LinkedIn's in the chat so you can go connect with all the speakers. Alex, thank you so much for your moderation. Joey and Todd, thank you so much for your knowledge. And audience, thank you so much for participating. Once again, we have a requested demo with our sponsor button at the top of this page. So if you like what you saw today, click the button and the doc team will get in touch with you later today. And I will be sending the recording for all of you later today. So thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of the week. Speakers, we can go hang out backstage, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye, everyone.